Could the truth be hiding in plain sight? What secrets have been taken to the grave? Which famous faces are connected to mysteries that continue to baffle investigators decades later? Number 12. The disappearance of Richey Edwards. Have you ever wondered what happened to Manic Street Preachers guitarist Richey Edwards? On February 1, 1995, the 27-year-old Welsh musician vanished without a trace. The day he disappeared, Edwards was supposed to fly to the United States with bandmate James Dean Bradfield for a promotional tour. Instead, he checked out of the London Embassy Hotel early that morning and was never seen again. In the days before his disappearance, Edwards withdrew £200 from his bank account daily, totaling £2,800 by the time he vanished. His abandoned car was found 2 weeks later near the Severn Bridge, a notorious suicide spot connecting England and Wales. Despite this, no body was ever recovered. Some fans believe the musician, who struggled with depression, anorexia, and self-harm, took his own life. Others think he staged his disappearance to escape fame. Reported sightings have placed Edwards in locations as varied as Goa, India, and the Canary Islands. A taxi driver even claimed to have picked up Edwards at the Severn Bridge and driven him around the Welsh valleys. In November 2008, Edwards' parents obtained a court order declaring their son presumed dead, but many fans refuse to believe he's gone. The case remains open with Interpol, and the mystery of what truly happened to Richey Edwards continues to haunt music fans worldwide. Number 11. The murder of Peter Ivers. Who killed Peter Ivers? The question has lingered since March 3, 1983, when the 36-year-old musician and television host was found bludgeoned to death in his Los Angeles apartment. Ivers was a Harvard-educated harmonica virtuoso who wrote In Heaven, the haunting song from David Lynch's film Eraserhead. He also hosted the groundbreaking late-night show New Wave Theater, which introduced Americans to punk and new wave acts. His circle of friends included John Belushi, Harold Ramis, and David Lynch. When police arrived at Ivers' loft in a rough area of downtown Los Angeles, they found him in bed with his head smashed in by a hammer that was never recovered. The crime scene was compromised almost immediately. Friends and acquaintances were allowed to walk through the apartment, potentially destroying evidence. No fingerprints were found, and the case quickly went cold. In 2008, the Los Angeles Police Department reopened the investigation, but despite renewed efforts, the killer remains unknown. Some suspect a random break-in gone wrong, while others believe it was someone Ivers knew. The crime occurred in an area known for drug activity and violence, but nothing was stolen from the apartment. Ivers' former girlfriend, Lucy Fisher, who later became co-chair of Columbia Pictures, has said, "Peter was the least likely person to be murdered that I knew." The case continues to baffle investigators and haunt those who knew the talented musician. Number 10. The killing of Bob Crane. What really happened to Hogan's Heroes star Bob Crane on that fateful night in June 1978? The actor, famous for his role as Colonel Robert Hogan in the popular sitcom, was found bludgeoned to death in his Scottsdale, Arizona apartment. The murder weapon, believed to be a camera tripod, was never found. Crane had been in Scottsdale performing in a dinner theater production of Beginner's Luck. The night before his body was discovered, he had called his friend John Henry Carpenter to cancel their plans. Carpenter was the main suspect in the case. He and Crane had a complicated friendship centered around their shared interest in photographing and videotaping their sexual encounters with women. When police searched Carpenter's car, they found blood that matched Crane's rare blood type. However, DNA testing wasn't available in 1978, so prosecutors couldn't definitively link the blood to Crane. Carpenter wasn't charged until 1992, when the case was reopened. Even then, a jury acquitted him due to lack of evidence. Some believe Carpenter killed Crane because the actor was ending their friendship. Others suspect an angry husband or boyfriend of one of Crane's many sexual partners. Carpenter maintained his innocence until his death in 1998, and with his passing, many believe the truth died with him. In 2016, Phoenix police released previously unseen crime scene photos and evidence, hoping someone might come forward with new information, but the case remains unsolved more than 4 decades later. Number 9. The unsolved murder of William Desmond Taylor. Could the killer of one of Hollywood's most prominent directors still be out there? Probably not, considering the crime happened in 1922, but the mystery endures. William Desmond Taylor, a respected filmmaker with over 40 silent films to his credit, was shot to death in his Los Angeles bungalow on February 1, 1922. Taylor's valet found him the next morning, lying on his back in the living room with a bullet wound in his back. The case became an immediate sensation, exposing the seedy underbelly of early Hollywood and contributing to the industry's implementation of morality clauses and self-censorship. The investigation was compromised from the start. Before police arrived, several studio executives entered Taylor's home and removed evidence, likely trying to protect the industry from another scandal. They allegedly took away a collection of love letters and other potentially embarrassing items. Numerous suspects emerged. There was Taylor's valet, Edward Sands, who had disappeared after embezzling from Taylor and forging his signature on checks. Popular actress Mabel Normand, who had visited Taylor just before his murder, fell under suspicion. So did actress Mary Miles Minter, who at 19 was infatuated with the 49-year-old director. Her mother, Charlotte Shelby, reportedly owned a gun of the same caliber used to kill Taylor and was fiercely protective of her daughter. Other theories pointed to drug dealers Taylor had been fighting against Hollywood's drug trade, blackmailers he had a secret past, or robbers. Despite numerous investigations and confessions over the decades, no one has ever been charged with the murder, and the case remains one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. Number 8. The disappearance of Jean Spangler. What happened to aspiring actress Jean Spangler when she stepped out one evening in 1949? The 26-year-old dancer and bit-part actress left her home in Los Angeles on October 7th, telling her sister-in-law she was meeting her ex-husband, then going to work on a film set. She never returned. 2 days after her disappearance, Spangler's purse was found in Griffith Park with a bizarre note inside. "Kirk, can't wait any longer, going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way while Mother is away." The note was torn at the bottom, cutting off whatever else she had written. Investigators initially suspected Spangler's ex-husband, Dexter Benner, with whom she was engaged in a bitter custody battle over their daughter. However, he had a solid alibi. The Kirk mentioned in the note led police to interview Kirk Douglas, who had recently worked with Spangler on the film Young Man with a Horn. Douglas denied knowing Spangler well, saying they had only brief interactions on set. Some theorized that Spangler, who was rumored to be pregnant, had died during an illegal abortion, the reference to Dr. Scott in her note suggesting as much. Others believed she had connections to organized crime through her work at nightclubs and might have been silenced. One particularly intriguing theory connected Spangler to gangster Mickey Cohen and his associate Davey Ogle, who disappeared 2 days after Spangler. A woman matching Spangler's description was reportedly seen with Ogle in Las Vegas after both had disappeared. Despite extensive investigation, no trace of Jean Spangler has ever been found, and her disappearance remains one of Hollywood's most perplexing cold cases. Number 7. The Black Dahlia Murder. Who sliced Elizabeth Short in half and left her mutilated body in a vacant lot? The question has haunted Los Angeles since January 15, 1947, when the 22-year-old aspiring actress's body was discovered in the Leimert Park neighborhood. Short, posthumously dubbed the Black Dahlia by the press due to her reputed penchant for black clothing, had been cut in half at the waist and drained of blood. Her face had been slashed from the corners of her mouth toward her ears, creating a ghastly smile. The killer had posed her body, placing her hands above her head and her legs spread apart. The case became an immediate sensation, with the Los Angeles Examiner actually calling Short's mother in Massachusetts, pretending to have good news about a beauty contest her daughter had won, just to get her reaction when they revealed the truth about her daughter's murder. Over the years, more than 50 people have confessed to killing Short, but most were dismissed as attention seekers. Numerous suspects have been investigated, including Dr. George Hodel, whose son, Steve Hodel, a former lap detective, has written books accusing his father of the crime. Other suspects have included gangster Bugsy Siegel, folk singer Woody Guthrie, and Orson Welles. Some theories connect Short's murder to the Cleveland Torso murders or the Lipstick murders in Chicago, suggesting a traveling serial killer. Despite being one of the most investigated murders in Los Angeles history, the case remains unsolved. The Black Dahlia has become an American legend, inspiring countless books, films, and television shows, all attempting to solve a mystery that has eluded authorities for over 75 years. Number 6. The disappearance of Amelia Earhart. What really happened to Amelia Earhart when she vanished over the Pacific Ocean? The pioneering aviator disappeared on July 2, 1937, during an attempt to circumnavigate the globe in her Lockheed Electra plane. Accompanied by navigator Fred Noonan, Earhart was aiming for Howland Island, a tiny speck in the Pacific, when all communication ceased. The official explanation is that Earhart and Noonan ran out of fuel, crashed into the ocean, and perished. But this hasn't stopped decades of alternative theories and expeditions seeking to solve one of the 20th century's most enduring mysteries. One theory suggests Earhart and Noonan landed on Gardner Island, now called Nicumararo, where they survived for a time as castaways. The International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, TIGHAR, has conducted multiple expeditions to the uninhabited island, finding items that could have belonged to Earhart, including a piece of aluminum that might match her plane, a woman's shoe, and a jar that may have contained freckle cream, which Earhart was known to use. Another theory posits that Earhart and Noonan were captured by Japanese forces after crash landing in the Marshall Islands, which were under Japanese control. Some locals claim to have witnessed their capture. This theory suggests Earhart died in Japanese custody, either from disease or execution. Perhaps most bizarrely, some believe Earhart survived, returned to America under an assumed name Irene Bollem, and lived out her life in New Jersey. Bollem herself vigorously denied these claims until her death. Despite numerous searches utilizing advanced technology, neither Earhart's plane nor her remains have been definitively located, leaving her final fate one of aviation's greatest unsolved mysteries. Number 5. The mysterious death of Edgar Allan Poe. Was it alcohol, rabies, or something more sinister that killed the master of macabre? On October 7, 1849, Edgar Allan Poe died in Baltimore under circumstances that remain mysterious to this day. The renowned author was found delirious outside Gunners Hall Tavern on October 3rd, wearing clothes that weren't his own and repeatedly calling out the name Reynolds. Poe was taken to Washington Medical College, where he spent his final days slipping in and out of consciousness. He never became coherent enough to explain what had happened to him or why he was in Baltimore when he was supposed to be on his way to Philadelphia. The attending physician, Dr. John Moran, listed congestion of the brain as the official cause of death, but many scholars believe this was a euphemism for alcohol-related causes. However, witnesses reported that Poe wasn't drunk when found, though he had a history of alcoholism. Alternative theories abound. Some medical experts have suggested Poe died from rabies, noting his symptoms matched the disease. Others have proposed epilepsy, carbon monoxide poisoning, or heavy metal poisoning as the cause. A particularly intriguing theory involves cooping, a form of voter fraud common in the era. Gangs would kidnap men, force them to drink, disguise them in different clothes, and make them vote multiple times for a particular candidate. The fact that Poe was found on an election day wearing someone else's clothes lends credence to this theory. Poe's contemporaries, particularly his literary rival Rufus Griswold, helped propagate the image of Poe dying from drunkenness, cementing the tragic, self-destructive narrative that has colored perceptions of the author ever since. The true circumstances of his death, much like his Gothic tales, remain shrouded in mystery. Number 4. The murder of John Bennett Ramsey. Who killed the 6-year-old beauty queen the day after Christmas? On December 26, 1996, John Bennett Ramsey was found murdered in the basement of her family's home in Boulder, Colorado. The case captivated the nation and remains unsolved more than 2 decades later. The morning began with John Bennett's mother, Patsy Ramsey, discovering a nearly 3-page ransom note demanding $118,000 for her daughter's return. Despite the note instructing the family not to contact authorities, Patsy called the police. Hours later, John Bennett's father, John Ramsey, found his daughter's body in a seldom-used basement room. She had been strangled with a makeshift garrote and suffered a skull fracture. The investigation was plagued with problems from the start. Police failed to secure the crime scene properly, allowing friends and family to move freely throughout the house, potentially contaminating evidence. The ransom note, oddly lengthy and written on paper from inside the house, raised immediate suspicions about an inside job. Suspicion fell heavily on John Bennett's parents. Some investigators believed Patsy had written the ransom note, though handwriting analyses were inconclusive. Others pointed to the lack of signs of forced entry and the peculiar specificity of the ransom amount, which matched John Ramsey's recent bonus. However, DNA evidence found on John Bennett's clothing didn't match anyone in the family. In 2008, new DNA testing techniques identified genetic material from an unknown male on the child's clothing, leading the Boulder District Attorney to formally exonerate the Ramsey family. Alternative theories have implicated everyone from a family friend to an intruder with a personal vendetta against John Ramsey to a pedophile who gained access to the house. Despite one of the largest investigations in Colorado history and extensive media coverage, John Bennett's killer has never been identified, leaving one of America's most infamous cold cases still open. Number 3. The disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. Where is Jimmy Hoffa's body? The infamous labor leader vanished on July 30, 1975, from the parking lot of the Matches Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. He was reportedly there to meet with Detroit mobster Anthony Giacalone and New Jersey labor leader Anthony Provenzano, but neither man showed up, and Hoffa was never seen again. As president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters from 1957 to 1971, Hoffa had built the union into one of the most powerful in America. His connections with organized crime led to federal convictions for jury tampering, fraud, and attempted bribery. After serving nearly 4 years in prison, he was pardoned by President Richard Nixon in 1971 on the condition that he stay out of union activities until 1980. By 1975, Hoffa was actively working to regain control of the Teamsters, putting him at odds with his successor, Frank Fitzsimmons, who had the support of organized crime figures. This conflict is widely believed to have led to Hoffa's disappearance. The FBI has pursued countless leads over the decades. Hoffa's body has been searched for under a swimming pool, at a horse farm, beneath a Detroit house, at a landfill, under Giants Stadium in New Jersey, and in numerous other locations. In 2013, the FBI even dug up a field in Oakland Township, Michigan, based on a tip from alleged mobster Tony Zerilli. Various mob figures have been implicated in Hoffa's disappearance, including Frank Sheeran, whose supposed confession formed the basis for Martin Scorsese's film, The Irishman. However, physical evidence supporting Sheeran's claims has never been found. Hoffa was declared legally dead in 1982, but his body has never been recovered, and no one has ever been charged with his murder. The mystery of what happened to Jimmy Hoffa continues to fascinate the public and frustrate investigators. Number 2. The Zodiac Killer. Who was the man behind the cryptic letters and brutal killings? Between December 1968 and October 1969, the Zodiac Killer murdered at least 5 people in the San Francisco Bay Area, though he claimed to have killed 37 victims in his letters to local newspapers. The Zodiac gained notoriety not just for his killings, but for the taunting letters he sent to the press, which included 4 cryptograms. Only one of these codes has been definitively solved. The killer usually targeted young couples in secluded areas, but also killed a taxi driver in San Francisco. His victims were shot or stabbed, and in one instance, a young couple survived his attack and provided a description that led to the famous police sketch of a man with glasses. The case has generated numerous suspects over the decades. Arthur Lee Allen was considered the prime suspect for years, but DNA evidence obtained from the stamps on Zodiac's letters didn't match Allen's. In 2002, San Francisco police created a DNA profile from saliva found on the stamps, but it hasn't matched any suspects in criminal databases. In 2020, 3 independent code-breaking teams announced they had solved the Zodiac's 340-character cipher, which had remained unbroken for 51 years. The message didn't reveal the killer's identity, but contained boasts about not fearing the afterlife. In October 2021, a team calling itself the Case Breakers claimed to have identified the Zodiac as Gary Francis Post, who died in 2018. They claimed to have evidence connecting him to murder victims beyond the confirmed Zodiac killings. However, the FBI stated that the case remains open, and law enforcement officials have not endorsed these findings. Despite being one of the most intensively investigated murder cases in American history, the Zodiac killer's true identity remains unknown, continuing to inspire books, movies, and amateur sleuths. Number 1. The death of Marilyn Monroe. Was it suicide, accident, or something more sinister? Marilyn Monroe, one of Hollywood's brightest stars, was found dead in her Brentwood, Los Angeles home on August 5, 1962. The official ruling was probable suicide by barbiturate overdose, but numerous questions and inconsistencies have fueled speculation about what really happened that night. Monroe, born Norma Jean Mortensen, had risen from humble beginnings to become the world's most famous sex symbol. At 36, she had recently been fired from her final, unfinished film, Something's Got to Give, though she had just been rehired before her death. Despite her fame, Monroe struggled with depression, anxiety, and substance abuse throughout her life. On her final day, Monroe spent time with several people, including her housekeeper, publicist, and psychiatrist. Her psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson, prescribed her Nembutal to help her sleep. Monroe was found naked in her bed, with an empty bottle of pills nearby. The timeline of events that night has been disputed. Monroe's housekeeper, Eunice Murray, initially said she found Monroe at around 3 a.m., but later changed her story. There was also a significant delay between finding Monroe's body and calling the police. No suicide note was found, and friends reported that Monroe had been in good spirits, making plans for the future. This has led some to believe her death was an accidental overdose rather than suicide. Monroe was known to be careless with medication, often taking pills without keeping track of how many she had consumed. More controversial theories suggest Monroe was murdered, possibly to prevent her from revealing sensitive information acquired through her alleged affairs with President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Attorney General Robert Kennedy. Some claim she kept a red diary containing political secrets. No such diary has ever been found. Conspiracy theories also point to the involvement of the CIA, FBI, or Mafia in Monroe's death. Former Los Angeles County Prosecutor John Miner, who was present at Monroe's autopsy, claimed there was no evidence of pills in her stomach, suggesting the drugs may have been administered another way. In 1982, the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office reviewed the case but found insufficient evidence to change the original finding of probable suicide. The investigation confirmed that Monroe had made suicide attempts before and had a pattern of using sedatives recklessly. Were there powerful people who wanted Marilyn Monroe silenced? Did America's most beloved actress take her own life, or was she the victim of a covered-up crime? More than 6 decades later, the true circumstances of Marilyn Monroe's death remain one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. Did these famous individuals take secrets to their graves? Will these cold cases ever be solved, or are some mysteries destined to remain forever in the shadows?